What's up everybody? Welcome to Castle Tech Talk, the show where we take 10 minutes to speak with technical experts that help you and I get just a little bit smarter. I'm your host, Jonathan Garcia, and today I'm joined by fellow racker and solutions engineer, Matt Kaltman. Matt, if you'd be so kind just to share a little bit about yourself and your history with Rackspace.
Sure, so I'm Matt Kaltman. I'm an SE here at Rackspace. I've been doing this for over 12 years. Started working here doing third shift support, and then I moved into sales. And I've been in SE for about over 7 years now.
Wow, okay. A lot of experience, a lot of expertise.
Yep, definitely encountered quite a few things.
Okay, great. So we're starting episode 1 of a series called Public Cloud Puppies. Just like a puppy, it's a lot easier and less expensive than you think it is once you get involved. And myself, I'm really not what you would call a technical person. My family counts on me to fix the Wi-Fi when it goes down, and my mom calls me when she can't log into Facebook. But about 6 months ago, if you asked me what the cloud was, I had a very vague definition. So Matt, if someone's really not familiar with the cloud, what's the easiest way that you would explain it to them?
Yeah, and we definitely get that a lot. And really, in a nutshell, the cloud is just essentially off-premise resources, right? Things you don't have to worry about that you won't have to come into physical contact with. So once it's out of the office, out of the server closet, essentially at that point it's in the cloud.
Okay, and why do people go to the cloud as opposed to just like keeping everything in-house? It sounds like it's easier to manage, or maybe it's not, keeping it.
Absolutely, so there's quite a few things that might push somebody to go to the cloud, move things off premise, and I'd say the biggest piece is going to be, of course, the hardware itself. Just not having to worry about switching hard drives out, replacing any hardware, worrying about network connectivity. And especially with certain offices, space can be limited, and your server closet might not have all of the same protections against things like fire, flooding, smoke, or just actual physical access. And so going to the cloud, you can get some of those things at a super cost-effective rate because they might be hosting other clients in those facilities. So just moving it off premise helps compartmentalize you from any kind of physical issues with that hardware. I think another great benefit there is, let's say your local office has an issue with the internet, you can go to somewhere that has public internet, Starbucks, a library, home, and still connect into your environment at one of these cloud providers and still do your work.
Wow, okay, so everyone is using the cloud today?
Many people are. I'd say if they aren't, that's definitely something they're keeping an eye on with how fast everything is developing. Doing stuff in-house has its place, but I think in almost every use case, there's room for the cloud and there are benefits to be achieved.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. And when you say cloud, like it's not hosted there, but there's different types of cloud, correct?
Right. So the big ones that most people hear about are things like Amazon Web Services, AWS, Google's cloud, and Microsoft Azure. Those are hosted public clouds, and a lot of great features there. But in addition to the public clouds, you have what's known as private clouds, which are places that like Rackspace that'll still host dedicated servers that we can virtualize and essentially give you that flexibility from cloud, spinning up services, maybe more on-demand type things, pay-as-you-go in some cases, but still with hardware you don't have to worry about off-premise, so you still have that flexibility and sort of compartmentalization from the hardware.
Okay, so that's the same for public and private cloud. It feels like AWS is like everywhere it looks. Like pull up LinkedIn, there's something for AWS, some new tooling or some new feature that they came out with. Why are we hearing so much about them, and kind of what's the difference for why people would choose to go to AWS versus maybe like a private cloud like Rackspace?
Well, so I guess why are they coming out with things? There's just definitely a rush to develop new tools, new features, new products and services, things like containerization and serverless, essentially things where you can just submit code and it runs. Now, why is Amazon everywhere? I think that has to do more with money. They're able to put a lot more into the development of their cloud products, and they were pretty early to the game. So I believe right now it's about 90% of cloud spend goes to Amazon resources. The other 5%, I believe, is actually Azure, and then the other 5% is essentially everyone else. Now that's quickly changing, of course, because between those big three, there's a lot of competition. They're constantly developing resources. As soon as one develops a tool, or feature, the others will rush to develop that same thing. So the benefit is for the buyers right now in terms of being able to use any or all of those, which does kind of fold into the follow-up topic I think we're going to do, which is hybrid clouds, which is being able to use multiple clouds and even potentially what's called a private cloud that we touched on earlier, so that you have the benefit of both an entirely customized platform, something like that we can provide dedicated servers geared specifically to your needs, but also the public clouds and having them interconnect so that you can still take advantage of the bleeding edge technology that's coming out.
Wow. It sounds like there's a lot of options for people. AWS has a pretty good hold on the market, 90%. I had no idea that they had that much market share.
Yep.
For public cloud. How are businesses making that determination? So occasionally we'll get calls, we'll have people asking us like, hey, I'm really not sure what's the best route. I'm trying to accomplish X, and they're coming to us for advice on that. If they're not reaching out to us and they're just trying to figure this out on their own, how are businesses coming to the conclusion on where to go?
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors there. I would say that if you're still coming from a more traditional environment where you're standing up, physical servers, or maybe even just doing your own virtualization, those can all still run in the public cloud. You can get dedicated instances, you can get resources that act like physical servers, and in some cases you might even be able to get physical servers from these public clouds. So while those can run there, that's not always ideal. It's much better when you're looking at the public clouds if you're planning on taking advantage of some of those features that they have. Spinning up and spinning down servers on the fly, taking advantage of things like serverless or containerization. And it's definitely okay if you want to do that, but you're not there yet, then it's a good idea to start having those conversations now, and you can even move into those platforms now and then evolve with them. And that's really where, of course, Rackspace can come in and help with that. But I definitely would not recommend just taking exactly what you have and put it in the public cloud and just leaving it, because then you're not taking advantage of the public clouds, and in many cases the cost can not be in your favor. So if you're willing to adapt, then the public clouds are great. If it's something that you have components of your environment that are maybe legacy and they can't take advantage of those, that's fine. You can still run those in those public clouds. They still have those resources like I mentioned. But the idea is to make as much of your environment, adapt and take advantage of those public cloud technologies as much as possible, and that's where you'll really start to see the benefit.
Okay. You said something that was kind of the theme of this is that if you take something and you're moving it to the cloud, the cost may not be exactly what you want it to be. And we titled this Public Cloud Puppies. I got a puppy last year. It was a little lab. I adopted him from the Texas Defense League. And it was real inexpensive to bring him home.
Oh, yeah.
And then my PlayStation headphones got chewed up. My wife's sandals got chewed up. And my pillows and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? It ended up costing me way more than the price that I initially thought. Do people have this conception of moving to the cloud to save money? Is that do you hear that?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people just believe moving into the public cloud is going to save them a lot of money. And additionally, they might be on one public cloud and think going to another one's going to save them cost. And while, yes, the cost will vary slightly between your major public clouds, because of how competitive all of them are, they're very similar in cost. And the key thing when it comes to the cost assessment, of course there are tools online you can use to run those numbers, but really like I was saying, if you're going to move over servers, VMs that are going to be online all the time, your workhorse instances, those can run in those clouds, but you might not get the benefit from a cost perspective from those clouds in that way. Unless, like I was saying, you are open to the spin up, spin down model. That's really where the cost effectiveness comes in. If you're a 9-to-5 business, you can always run your servers then, shut them down overnight, store that data in a storage service, and then you can start to see some cost benefits there. But if it's on all the time, then that's going to be eating up cost, and it might make sense to just stay with a physical resource. But that is really where I see the hybrid cloud coming in. You would keep your workhorse components on standard physical gear, and then as you continue to evolve, you can start developing and deploying things into these cloud resources to take advantage of the sort of cloud native capabilities there.
Okay. A lot of interesting topics that we're going over. I guess to end this conversation, what's some advice that you would give maybe to a business owner to a smaller company that's trying to decide what's the best route for them to take?
Well, definitely talk to some cloud experts. They're going to be able to help you determine if they're a good fit. Now, of course, always be cautious of who you're talking to and what their goals are. But at least, at Rackspace, since we offer services on all of these platforms, we really just have your best interest in mind. If it's going to be better in a more traditional environment, that's what we're going to tell you. And if you want to evolve at some point, we're going to be there to do it. But I'd say your primary focus is going to be determining which parts of your environment are legacy and can't change because maybe the application is old or just requires very specific settings. And start figuring out what pieces you can separate, what pieces you can evolve, and then take a look at those cloud calculators. They're going to give you your first indication of where those costs sit.
Okay, that's the real eye opener, I guess, right?
Yeah.
All of this is kind of conceptual until you go in there and start.
Right, and of course pay attention to resource allocations on those services. Everybody has their own name for server flavors, the M2 large in AWS and stuff, and that doesn't mean anything to you initially, so you'll be able to look up and determine, oh, this has so much RAM, so much CPU, and then really compare apples to apples with what you have now.
Good. Hey, well, thanks for taking some time to share your insight with us. What we'll be doing next week, join us for another episode of Public Cloud Puppies. We'll be diving in a little more into the public clouds and maybe some features, benefits that would be beneficial for your business. Feel free to leave any comments, thoughts, or suggestions below, and thank you again.